You're an artist in Guadalajara, 36 years old, trained at a studio in Mexico City when you were 19, spent 15 years building a reputation as one of the best tattoo artists in Western Mexico. Your work is known for detail, photorealistic portraits, intricate religious imagery, the kind of pieces that take 8 hours and cost what some people make in a month. Clients fly in from Los Angeles and Houston. You've been featured in magazines. You have a life. The cartel finds you the way the cartel finds everyone, through someone who owes them something. A client of yours, a man you've tattooed 3 times, turns out to be connected. He brings you to meet people who admire your work. They have a proposition. They need someone to do exclusive pieces for their organization. Commemorative tattoos, rank insignias, memorial portraits of fallen soldiers. They'll pay triple your usual rates. They'll send you clients regularly. All you have to do is become their artist. You should say no. You know what happens to people who get tangled with these organizations, what it means to become part of their world, even in a peripheral way. But you're also looking at your shop, at the rent that keeps increasing, at the competition from cheaper artists who undercut your prices. Triple rates would change everything. Triple rates would let you stop worrying. You say yes, and the man who brought you here smiles like he knew you would. The first client arrives 3 days later. He's a sicario. You can tell by the way he moves through space, economical and alert, aware of every exit. You can tell by the scars on his hands, the kind that come from work done with blades. You can tell by the emptiness behind his eyes, a flatness you've learned to recognize in men who've crossed certain lines and can never cross back. He's polite, respectful, treats you like a professional. He wants a portrait on his chest, a woman, young, beautiful, clearly dead. His sister, he explains, killed by rivals 2 years ago, caught in crossfire that was meant for him. He wants her face over his heart so she's always with him, so he never forgets what he owes and who he owes it to. You do the work. 8 hours, the most detailed portrait you've ever created, working from a photograph that shows her laughing at something outside the frame. Her eyes are the hardest part. You spend 2 hours on the eyes alone, trying to capture the life that's no longer there. When you're finished, the sicario looks in the mirror and cries. Silent tears rolling down a face that's probably watched men die without flinching, probably caused men to die without feeling anything at all. He touches the portrait gently, reverently, like he's touching her actual skin. He pays you 3 times your rate in cash, bundled in an envelope he pulls from his jacket. He says he'll send others. He keeps his word. The clients come steadily after that. Soldiers wanting memorials for brothers they've lost in firefights and ambushes, and the endless small wars that never make the news. Lieutenants wanting symbols of rank, a scorpion for one faction, a specific arrangement of skulls for another. Regional identifiers that mean nothing to outsiders and everything to initiates. Wives and girlfriends wanting portraits of men who've been killed or imprisoned or simply disappeared. Faces they want to carry on their bodies forever, because bodies are the only canvas they can control. Each piece tells a story. Each story is soaked in violence. You're creating a documentary of a war, one portrait at a time, recording faces that will otherwise be forgotten by everyone except the people who love them. You learned the visual language of the cartel, the way you once learned anatomy and shading. The Santa Muerte imagery that marks certain affiliations. The death saint who protects those who deal in death. The regional symbols that identify territories. Stylistic elements that tell anyone who knows how to look exactly where a man comes from and who he works for. The coded numbers and letters that mean nothing to outsiders and function as military insignias within the organization. You become fluent in a language of skin and ink, reading bodies the way scholars read texts, understanding histories written in pigment and scar tissue. The knowledge is valuable. Cops would pay for what you know. The visual encyclopedia you've built of organizational structures and hierarchies. The knowledge is also dangerous. The kind of information that gets people killed when it falls into the wrong hands. You keep it locked in your head. Never write it down. Never discuss it with anyone. The silence becomes second nature, a discipline as rigorous as any artistic technique. Year 1. You've done over 50 pieces for the organization. Your bank account has never looked healthier. You've expanded your shop, hired an assistant, moved into an apartment with a view of the city. The legitimate clients still come too, blending with the cartel work in a way that makes everything feel almost normal. You tell yourself you're just an artist. You tell yourself the ink doesn't make you complicit in what these men do. But you've also started to know them. That's the part you didn't expect. The human connections that form across the needle, in the hours of conversation that fill the silence while you work. The Sicario with the sister's portrait comes back for more pieces. He tells you about growing up in poverty, about the brother who recruited him, about the first man he killed, and how it felt like nothing, and that nothing scared him more than anything. He's a monster by any measure. He's also a human being who cries for his sister. The contradiction doesn't resolve. You learn to hold it. A woman comes in year 2. She's the wife of someone important. You can tell by the guards who wait outside, by the quality of her clothes, by the way she carries herself like someone accustomed to deference. She wants a portrait of her husband on her shoulder blade. She shows you a photograph. A man in his 50s, distinguished, the kind of face that commands respect. You don't recognize him, but you know what he must be. You spend 12 hours creating the most perfect portrait of your career. She cries too when you're finished, but her tears are different from the Sicario's. There's fear in them, and exhaustion, and something that looks like grief for a man who's still alive. You don't ask questions. You never ask questions. But you understand, in the way you've learned to understand, that she's trapped in a world she didn't choose, marking her body with a man who probably terrifies her. The portrait is beautiful. The portrait is also a brand. Your reputation grows within the organization. They call you El Artista, and the name carries respect. Men who've killed dozens of people sit patiently in your chair for hours, trusting you with their bodies, trusting you with their stories. You've become a confessor of sorts, the person they talk to while the needle works, when their guard is down, and the pain creates a kind of intimacy. You've heard things that would make prosecutors weep with joy. You keep it all to yourself. Keeping secrets is survival. Year 3. A lieutenant asks you to do something different. Not a memorial, not a symbol. A punishment. A man who betrayed the organization, who needs to be marked before he's released. They want you to tattoo his face, a single word across his forehead. Rata. Rat. Informer. A permanent brand that will follow him forever, that will tell everyone who sees him exactly what he is. You refuse. You explain that you don't do forced tattoos, that your art requires consent, that this crosses a line you won't cross. The lieutenant stares at you for a long moment. Then he nods, says he respects your principles, says he'll find someone else. You wait for retaliation that doesn't come. The line holds. But you understand now that lines exist only as long as the organization allows them to exist. Your principles are protected by their tolerance, not by any power of your own. The memorials become harder in year 4. A man comes in wanting a portrait of his son, 19 years old, killed in a firefight with military forces. The boy was a soldier in the organization, had been since he was 16, and died defending a shipment that was worth more than his life would ever be. The father has photographs spanning the boy's entire existence, as a toddler on his mother's lap, as a teenager with his first car, as the young soldier he became in the months before he died. You create the portrait over 3 sessions, 12 hours total, and by the end, you feel like you knew the boy yourself. The father talks about him constantly, his humor, his loyalty, his dreams of one day leaving the business and opening a restaurant, some small place where he could cook for normal people who lived normal lives. Dreams that ended with a bullet in a warehouse outside Mazatlan. The father never cries. He's past crying, past the stage of grief where tears still mean something. He just talks, filling the hours with memories, building a monument out of words while you build one out of ink. When you finish the portrait, he looks at it in the mirror for a long time. Then he thanks you, pays you more than you quoted, and walks out into a life that will never contain his son again. And you go home that night and sit in the dark for an hour. The work is hollowing you out, filling you with other people's grief until there's no room left for yourself. Every portrait is a ghost. Every memorial is a monument to violence that you've been paid to commemorate. You're documenting a war through the bodies of its soldiers, creating permanent records of loss that will last as long as skin holds ink. You're not a combatant. You're an archivist, but archivists can drown too. Your girlfriend leaves in year 5. Her name is Elena, and she's known about the cartel work since year 2. You couldn't hide it, not with the kinds of clients who show up at your shop surrounded by bodyguards, not with the amounts of cash you suddenly had access to. She accepted it at first, rationalized it the way you rationalized it. You're just an artist. The ink doesn't make you complicit. Someone would do the work if you didn't, but she can't anymore. She says you've changed, that the work has gotten inside you, that she doesn't recognize the man she fell in love with. She says you talk in your sleep now, names she doesn't recognize, apologies to people who aren't there. She says you flinch when you hear sirens. She says the photographs of your work that cover your studio walls have started looking like a morgue. She's right. You have changed. You don't recognize the man she fell in love with either. He was an artist who loved his craft. You're a ghost collector who can't stop adding to the collection. The violence touches you directly in year 6. A rival organization targets people connected to your clients, sending a message through collateral damage. Your shop is broken into, your equipment destroyed, a note left promising worse if you continue working for those people. You report nothing to the police. You call Delgado, the handler who coordinates your work, and within a week the men responsible are dead. The message is clear: you're protected. The message also means you're owned. You rebuild the shop with money the organization provides. New equipment, better security, an armed guard who sits in the waiting area during certain appointments. You're not just an artist anymore. You're an asset, too valuable to lose, too enmeshed to leave. The trap closed so gradually, you didn't notice until you were already inside it, until the walls were too high to climb. Year 7. You're doing a memorial for a man who lost his entire crew. 6 soldiers, ambushed and killed in a single night. He wants all 6 faces on his back, arranged around a Santa Muerte figure, a shrine he'll carry forever. The work takes 5 sessions over 3 weeks. You get to know each face intimately, working from photographs that show young men with families and futures that were always borrowed time. The man talks while you work. He tells you how each of them died, where they fell, what their last words were. He tells you about their families, the wives and children left behind, the obligations he's trying to fulfill as the only survivor. He's not grieving. He's past grief, into something harder and colder. He's documenting. He's turning his body into a memorial, because memorials are all that's left. You finish the piece. It's the best work you've ever done. 6 faces so alive they seem to breathe, arranged around a death saint who watches over them with hollow eyes. The man pays you double what you quoted. He says his back has become sacred ground. He says he can feel them with him now. You go home and cry for the first time in years. The work has broken something in you, some boundary between yourself and the suffering you document. You carry their faces now too, all of them. The sister, the husband, the 19-year-old soldier, the 6 ambushed men. Your skin is unmarked, but your mind is covered in portraits of the dead. You think about leaving. Every year you think about it. Closing the shop, moving to another city, starting over with clients who want butterflies and quotes instead of martyrs and memorials. But you know too much now. You've seen too many faces, heard too many confessions, understood too much of the organization's visual language. People who know what you know don't get to walk away. They get to keep working or get to disappear. Year 8. A boy comes in. He's barely 20, too young for the things he's already done. He wants his first cartel tattoo, a symbol that marks him as belonging. His hands shake with excitement. He thinks this is the beginning of something glorious, The start of a life that means something. You want to refuse? You want to tell him what you've seen, the memorials you've created for men who started exactly where he's starting, young and hungry and stupid with ambition. You want to show him the photographs of corpses you work from, the faces of widows who come to immortalize husbands who died too young. But you don't. You do the tattoo, small, discreet, the entry-level mark he requested. You do it because refusing would raise questions, because your principles apparently only extend so far, because somewhere in 8 years, you've become exactly what you swore you'd never become. Complicit. The boy leaves with his new ink, beaming like he's won something. You know what he's actually won. A clock that started ticking. A countdown measured in years, or maybe just months, until someone is sitting in your chair asking for his face on their skin. You clean your equipment. You sterilize the needles. You prepare for the next client, whoever they are, whatever story they carry into your chair. You tell yourself you're just an artist, that the ink doesn't make you responsible, that you're documenting a world you didn't create and can't change. You've been telling yourself that for 8 years. You'll keep telling yourself for as long as it takes, for as long as the clients keep coming, for as long as the dead need faces and the living need to carry them. The needle doesn't judge. The needle doesn't choose sides. The needle just records. That's what you are now. A recording device. A keeper of ghosts. The portraits cover your walls at home. Photographs of your work. Faces of the dead. You live with them. You sleep beneath them. They're the only proof that any of it was real. They're the only proof that you were here. That's a wrap. The story is fiction, but cartel tattoo artists are real. Right now, in shops across Mexico, artists are creating memorials for the dead and brands for the living, documenting a war, one portrait at a time. The ink tells stories that never make the news. The ink outlasts everything. If this made you think, drop a comment. Subscribe for more.